Hi, this is Mohan Golak, Assistant Professor, Department of CSE, Hirashigor Institute of Technology, Nidsoshi. So today we'll start Module 4 as per VTU syllabus of 6th semester OS. And in that, let us start Chapter 9, that is Virtual Memory. So let us start the discussion of virtual memory. And we know that whenever we want to execute a program, the program will be present in secondary memory. In order to execute that program, the program is to be brought to the primary memory, and we know that the capacity of primary memory is limited compared to the secondary memory. So that's why in order to help this, we have the concept of virtual memory here. As the name itself indicates, virtual memory is it's a logical memory. So you can consider virtual memory as a separation of user's logical memory from the physical memory. So here what happens, only part of the program needs to be in memory for the execution. Means we know that whenever a program is to be executed, that program will be loaded into the primary memory, but as the primary memory is limited, here we consider to load only part of the program that needs to be in the memory for execution. Means there may be several functions in the particular program, and there may be some functions out of those which may not be called or may not be executed. So loading such functions is of no use. So next is, the logical address space can therefore be much larger than the physical address space. So it allows address space to be shared by several processes and allows for more efficient process creation. So how this virtual memory can be implemented? So this can be implemented by the demand paging and demand segmentation. So as we saw, the virtual memory is nothing but a logical memory which is going to be mapped to the physical memory. So here this picture clearly shows where the virtual memory comes and where is the physical memory. So you can see here, this is the actual physical memory and this is the virtual memory. So here this virtual memory is divided into the number of pages. So here we consider pages from 0 to V, and here we have between virtual memory to physical memory, we have a particular data structure which is going to map this logical memory or the virtual memory to the physical memory. And as a result, you can see the logical or the virtual memory is larger in size compared to the physical memory. So physical memory in turn will be accessing the corresponding storage disk. So we know that whenever a particular program is executing, so a process will be created, and that process will be having an associated memory which is meant for the use of that process. So it will be again using the different memory segments. So it will be using, as we already know, it will be using the code, that is segment, data segment, the heap area, stack area. We know that between this stack area and heap area we have a particular memory block or a memory area which can be occupied by both heap and stack as and when required. So whatever this free memory that is there between the stack and heap, this itself we consider as a virtual address space. So as we saw in the previous slide, that by using this virtual memory it is possible to have a code that is shared among the different processes. So as an example, we consider this figure. So here we have the shared pages, means this is the blocks of memory which are shared among the number of processes. So here we already saw in the previous slide that whenever a process is executing, it will be having the associated memory segments in this way. So here this represents one process and this represents another process. So this process is having its own stack segment, heap, data, code, and so on. And here in this virtual address space we have the shared library, and here for this second process also it is having its own copies of these segments, and along with that in the virtual memory it is having the shared library. But here only one copy of the shared page will be there, and this will be shared among the number of processes. So in this way the virtual memory can be used, and this is helpful for sharing the common code among the processes. So next we'll see, next we'll start the discussion of implementing the virtual memory with the discussion of demand paging. We know that demand paging system is similar to a page system or paging system with swapping, where processes reside in the second memory. So what exactly this demand paging? The name itself indicates demand paging means loading only the pages which are in demand, means only loading only those pages which are required for the execution to the main memory. So when we want to execute a process, we swap it into the memory, and rather than swapping the entire process into the memory, however, we use something called the lazy swapper. So here this lazy swapper will never swaps a page into the memory unless that page will be, so that is what this demand paging is. So swapper that deals with the pages is also called as a pager. So what are the benefits, or what are the aspects of this demand paging? So bring a page into the memory only when it is needed. So the less IO needed, the less memory needed, faster response, and more users. So these are the, you can consider these are the uses or advantages of having this demand paging. And whenever a page is needed, so reference to it. So again here we use the two type of references, that is the invalid reference and not in memory. So if it is invalid reference, we have to abort, and if it is not in memory, we have to bring that to the memory. So let us consider this example again. So for this demand paging, and we saw that demand paging means, so here we have lazy swapper. So whichever part of the program that is to be executed, only that part is loaded into the memory, and other will be present in the secondary memory. So here you can consider this is the main memory as per the discussion, and this is the secondary storage. And here we know that program A is there. So program A occupies this particular blocks of memory, and program B occupies these particular blocks of memory. And you can see there is a mapping between these two, the secondary storage device. And here this is nothing but I am moving data from this to this, moving this program from this main memory to the secondary memory is called as swap out, and loading a program from the secondary memory to the main memory is called as swap in. So here this is an example of a transfer of a paged memory to the contiguous disk space. You can see here the disk space are contiguous. So here as the disk space are contiguous in the main memory, similarly here also the segments will be contiguous in the secondary memory. So as we saw in the previous chapter, that is how the memory protection can be provided with the help of valid and invalid bit. The same approach is followed here also. So we know that with each page table entry a valid or invalid bit is associated. So V indicates in memory and I indicates not in memory, that is valid and invalid. So initially valid invalid bit is set to I on all entries, and example of a page table snapshot is as follows. So along with the frame information, it will be having this valid invalid bit, where V indicates valid bit and I indicates the invalid bit. So let us consider the same example whatever we saw in the previous chapter, that is the page table when some pages are not in main memory. So as we saw, when the page is not in main memory, the corresponding bit is set to invalid, and if it is in memory, the corresponding bit is set to valid. So in this example we have the logical memory, page table, physical memory, and the associated disk storage. So here you can see the page 0 is valid, page 2 is valid, and page 5 is valid. So these are nothing but the frame numbers. So you have to consider here the frame number 0 is a page A, so that's why only page A is present in memory. So similarly frame 2 is for page C, so you can see page C is present in the memory. Similarly the third valid bit is for frame 5, though for frame 5 the page is F, so only F is present in the main memory. So that is what here only 3 pages are available in the main memory, in the physical memory, that is A, C and F. So that's why the corresponding bits for this page A, C and F. The frame numbers are for A it is 0, for C it is 2 and for F it is 5. So that's why only 0, 2 and 5 bits are valid and other are invalid. So in this way this can be used for memory protection. So next we'll see the page fault. So as per our previous discussion, so we know that if a particular page is not there, so the corresponding bit will be set as invalid bit. So here if there is a reference to a page, first the reference to that page will trap to the operating system. So there is one procedure to handle this page fault. So before that we'll see what exactly this page fault is. So the basically as we saw that if the corresponding bit is set to 0, then the page is not present in the primary memory, and such page, the page which is not present in that primary memory, this is called as the page fault. So again, how to handle this page fault? So again, for that there is a simple procedure which can be used to follow the handle this page fault. The steps are as follows. The first one is you have to determine whether the reference was a valid or an invalid memory access. If it is invalid, then terminate the corresponding process and generate the trap to the operating system. And in the next step, the operating system is going to bring the page from the corresponding page, because it is not present. That page will be brought from the secondary storage, and in order to bring that to the primary memory, a free frame should be there. So that's why we have to find a free frame if available, else we have to use a page replacement algorithm to remove one page from primary memory to make a fair free. Means here in the second step, if the frame is not available, the page is not available, it will be invalid. So if it is invalid, the operating system needs to bring that page from secondary storage to the primary storage, but on the primary storage there should be a free space. If there is no free space, we have to create a free space. So in order to create a free space, we have to replace a page which is not in use, and for this we have certain algorithms that are nothing but the page replacement algorithms. These will discuss in the next sessions. So after that, whenever we find a particular free page, so we have to modify the page table to indicate that the page is now in memory after bringing that page to the from secondary memory to the primary memory. So after that you have to restart the instruction that was interrupted by the trap, and the process can now access the page as though it had always been in B. So this is how the page fault can be handled. So let us see how this will happen diagrammatically. So here the circled numbers indicates the steps. So here we saw that first step is we have to check whether the corresponding bit is valid or invalid. If the corresponding bit is invalid, you have to generate a trap to the operating system. So here operating system is going to bring that corresponding page from the secondary storage. So in order to bring this to the secondary storage, there should be a free space here. So whenever it finds a free space, so that page will be brought to the physical memory. So whenever this new page is brought to physical memory, so accordingly the page table entries are to be reset. Initially it was invalid, so whenever you bring that page here, so you have to set that page as valid to indicate that page is now present in the memory. So after this you have to restart the instruction, so that the instruction will execute as if the page was present in the memory from before. Next we'll see the performance of demand paging. So we know that the demand paging can significantly affect the performance of a computer system, because this is an additional activity that the system should perform. So to see why, let us compute the effective access time for a demand paged memory. So to compute the effective access time, we need to know the value of P, which is nothing but a page fault rate. This page fault rate is also called as the the probability of the page fault. So as this is also called as the probability of a page fault, we know that the probability value always will be in the range of 0 to 1. So here also the value of p should be in the range of 0 to 1. So here if p is equal to 0, that indicates there is no any page fault, and if p is equal to 1, so every reference is a fault. So to calculate effective access time, the formula is EAT equal to 1 minus P into memory accesses plus P into page fault time. So let us consider one example here. So if the memory access time is 200 nanoseconds and average page fault service time is 8 milliseconds, so let us calculate EAT. So this EAT is given as 1 minus P multiplied by 200, that is memory access time in nanoseconds, plus P multiplied by 8 milliseconds. So here you can see this 200 is in nanoseconds and 8 is in milliseconds. So we have to either convert this 200 into milliseconds or 8 into the nanoseconds. We will consider the second one. So here we will convert this 8 milliseconds in terms of the nanoseconds, that becomes 8 million seconds, 8 million nanoseconds. So this becomes 1 minus 2 into 200 plus p into 8 million nanoseconds. So this altogether will become 200 plus p multiplied by 7,999,800. So if you put the suitable value for p, you will get the actual effective access time value. So if one access out of the 1000 causes a page fault, then the effective access time will become the 8.2 microsecond whenever you calculate by this. So this is a slowdown by a factor of 40. So next we will see the copy on write. So we know that whenever a particular process calls the fork system call, a new process will be created. The process that calls fork is called as a parent process, and the new process created is called as a child process. So when a new process, a child process is created, it will be a duplicate of its parent process. Duplicate in the sense, whatever the memory segments or memory area that is held by the parent, the same will be copied as it is to the child. So traditionally that is what the fork worked by creating a copy of the parent's address space for the child, duplicating the pages belonging to the parent. So however, considering that the many child processes invoke the exec system call immediately after creation. So whenever a child starts executing the exec system call, means it will start executing some other program, so its own new copy of memory will be allocated. So in that case, whatever the memory that is copied or occupied by the parent's address space, it is of waste. So that's why in order to avoid these particular difficulties, so we have a concept of copy on write. So what exactly this copy on write? So this copy on write allows both parent and child processes to initially share the same pages in memory. So as we saw, so by the traditional approach, whenever a new child process is created, so it is going to create a copy of the pages that are held by the parent. But by this copy on write approach, whenever a child process is created, so both parent and child processes will continue to use the same pages that are with the parent. Means here the new copy of the parent pages will not be created until a particular condition. What is that condition? If either process modifies a shared page, only then is the page copied. Means here whatever the page that is shared among both parent and child, so if one of these parent and child want to change the content of that shared page, so in that case the other process needs to create a copy of that page. Until that, by this copy on write approach, we will be preventing both parent and child to create the two copies of the same memory space. So by this copy on write allows more efficient process creation, as only modified pages are copied and free pages are allocated from a pool of zeroed out pages. So next we will see this pictorially. So before process 1 modifies the page C. So here we have considered an example where we have the two processes. This is process 1's memory area, this is process 2's memory area. So here again there is a part of memory, so which is let us consider there are three pages, that is page 1, page B, page A, page B and page C. These are shared among both process 1 and process 2. So as per this copy on write, this particular copy on write have prevented the processes to creating the duplicate copies. As a result, the processes, both the processes are sharing the same a single copy of the same pages. So this is to a until a condition that one of the process tries to copy the content. So that we will see in the next picture. So here let us consider this process 2 want to change the content of page C. So initially page C is shared among both process 1 and process 2, but process 2 want to change the content of this page C, which will not be required for process 1. So in that case, the process 1 is going to create a copy of this C and it will be kept with this one. Okay. So here by this copy on write, the unnecessarily duplicate copies of the same pages is avoided. Okay, and whenever there is a need, the duplicate is allowed to be created. So next question is, what happens if there is no free frame? So if there is no free frame, then obviously we have to create a space in the main memory, and for that we have to go for the page replacement. So the page replacement is nothing but a process or a procedure to find some page in memory but not really in use. So in this case we are going to swap out that particular memory to the secondary storage, and we have to swap in the page that is to be loaded. So for this we can use a particular algorithm. So these algorithms we will see in the next session. So after this we will see the concept of page replacement now. So in demand paging or in virtual memory management systems, so we bring only those pages into the primary memory which is required at any time. So if there is no free frame in primary memory and CPU wants to execute a page which is not present in primary memory, so this is called a page fault. So then we need to remove one page from the primary memory and bring new page from the secondary memory. So this is what the discussion we had till now. So that's what the page replacement is, a process of selecting a page in primary memory to make a way or to make a free space for the new page in the primary memory. So as we saw in the previous slide, so here we have the swap in and swap out. So whatever the old page that is not in use, so this will be swapped out to the secondary storage, so that we can swap in a new page which is required for the execution in the main memory. So this is shown through this particular figure. So here we have the page table, and here we now have the particular valid invalid bit. This invalid bit indicates the page is not available, and this valid bit indicates the page F is available. So this F page is present in this physical memory, but this is of no use presently. So that's why by this page replacement algorithm or this approach, what you are going to do is, so here the page F, this is not in use presently, but there is one more page that is O, so this is required for the execution, but it is not present in the memory. So that's why here let us consider there is no free frame available on the physical memory, so that's why we have to create a space so that this particular page O can be loaded here. So for that, temporarily this victim frame, that is frame F, will be swapped out to the secondary storage, and as a result a free space will be created here. So after that, whenever this particular page is swapped out, so we have to mark this particular page as invalid, because this page F is no longer present on the physical memory. So after this we have to load page O, so that page O will be swapped into the physical memory. So accordingly we have to update the page table entry to indicate now the page O is present on the page table, and hence this O can be executed now as per the requirement of the CPU. So next we'll see the basic procedure that is followed for the page replacement. So these are the steps for that. The first one is you have to find the location of the desired page on the disk. So the second, find a free frame. So if there is a free frame, use it. If there is no free frame, use a page replacement algorithm to select a victim frame, as we saw in the previous figure. So bring the desired page into the newly that is a free frame on the physical memory, and update the page and frame tables. After that, restart the process.